The bridge behind me is called Tacoma Narrows Bridge. It's quite sturdy and it is strong, but the one that was there before, it was not strong. And the book I'm going to read to you is called Galloping Gertie, and it's about the bridge that was there before the current one.
A new bridge opens. Tacoma, Washington, August 1940. Dale Versing stepped onto the Tacoma Narrows Bridge for the first time in his life. 3 years in the making, the bridge had just opened the month before, connecting the Kitsap Peninsula to the city of Tacoma, Washington. Under Dale's feet, the roadway of the suspension bridge gently rose and fell like a boat rolling on the ocean. Far below churned the fierce waters of the Narrows. Through his living room window, Dale had watched with curiosity as workmen built the bridge towers, strung the cables, and then finally pierced the roadway together high above the water. How exciting it was to finally walk on the bridge! But was it normal for such a mammoth bridge to bob and bounce even on a calm evening such as this? A local engineer, Clark Eldridge, had designed the bridge to be lightweight and flexible, perhaps a little too flexible. When the wind blew, the center span bounced up and down. The men who built the bridge nicknamed her Galloping Gertie. People said they could see the cars ahead of them disappear and reappear as they drove across her. Others claimed it was like riding a roller coaster. Dale didn't know this would be not just his first, but his only time walking across her, nor did he have any idea of the tragedy that would soon befall Gertie in just a few months' time on his birthday. Disaster. Thursday, November 7, 1940. Shortly after midnight, a chilly fall wind began to whistle past Dale's house, nestled next to the dark waters of the Tacoma Narrows. Dale was tucked in bed, safe and warm, dreaming of nothing but turning a year older that day. As Dale slept, Clark Eldridge, the bridge designer, drove across Gertie on his way to work. Gertie's roadway bobbed slowly up and then down, carrying Eldridge's car with it, just like any ordinary day since the opening of the bridge. By mid-morning, Dale was awake. Outside, towering trees swayed under the strength of the wind that had now picked up to over 40 miles per hour. But the wind often blasted past Dale's house and howled through the Narrows. Gertie had already survived several fall storms with winds well over 50 miles per hour. However, Dale wasn't thinking about the wind. He was thinking about his special birthday dinner that night and what present his dad might bring home for him after work. As Dale played inside his cozy house, Gertie suddenly began to twist from side to side in the wind. The edges of her center span swung back and forth, rising high into the air. Gertie was swinging so wildly that no one could drive or even walk on her. Frightened, the men running Gertie's toll booth quickly shot the bridge down. This was little help to the four people who were already crossing Gertie and were now stranded on her center span. A man and a woman crawled desperately away from their toppled truck toward Gertie's west tower. Another man, forced to abandon his car with his dog Toby still inside, crawled toward the East Tower. The fourth person was a college student who had walked across Gertie just to enjoy the bounce of her center span. Gertie swung him so far out he could see a boat passing under him. Gertie groaned. She buckled. Sounds of cracking concrete echoed around the struggling travelers. Chunks of her roadway burst out and slipped across her lanes. Lampposts snapped off and rolled about like matchsticks. Snap, crack, crack, groan. Dale's mother glanced out the window just as a massive piece of concrete fell from Gertie's underbelly and splashed into the water below. Dale! His mom called to him in surprise. He ran to her, and together they watched in amazement as Gertie flailed about in the wind. To everyone's relief, the winds calmed a bit, and so did Gertie. Two bridge workmen in a truck backed out onto Gertie and picked up the man and the woman. At Gertie's opposite end, with torn pants and bloody knees, the college student and the other man reached the East Tower safely. Unfortunately, Toby the dog was still stuck in the car on the bridge. A photographer who had been called to the scene and a professor who happened to be there studying Gertie's movement that day both separately tried to rescue Toby. But Gertie's swinging, even in calmer winds, was too much and forced the men to turn back. Bring! A neighbor was calling from up the street. She had also been watching Gertie. Would Dale and his mother like to come to her house for a better view? Yes, they would. What a spectacular birthday this was turning out to be. Dale was full of excitement and had no idea how scared everyone was on the bridge. As the wind picked up again, they gathered in front of the giant picture window and watched while Gertie whipped around like a flag flapping on a pole. Swoosh, pop, screech, snap, crack, crumble, grind. Gertie twisted one way, which caused her to twist with more force the other way. At last, the strain from all the movement was too much for even the mighty Gertie. Her beams fatigued, she gave in. Her steel girder snapped like rubber bands. Her bolts shot into the air. The howling wind mixed with the screeching of metal on metal as her steel cables rubbed back and forth, finally breaking and flying free. A firework of sparks from snapping wires rained down into the Narrows. Then, with one final frantic twist, Gertie's concrete roadway ripped like paper, and she plummeted into the waves below with a massive 100-foot splash. Clark Eldridge had been called to the scene when Gertie first started to swing about. Now he stood white-faced and watched as his beloved bridge disappeared into the churning water below, his heart sinking along with her. Those who had crawled to safety, as well as other gathered bystanders, stood back heartbroken and in shock. Gertie appeared heartbroken as well. Her collapsed center span sagged wearily, and her torn roadway dangled like tattered rags into the water. Safe in his neighbor's house, Dale couldn't believe he had just watched the collapse of the bridge that he had crossed just a few months earlier. Gertie had only been open for 4 months. Still in shock, Dale headed home with his mother. However, his mind was already meandering back to his birthday dinner that night. What a perfect ending it would be to such an exciting day! Only when Dale was much older would he realize what a somber and frightening event it had been for the people on the bridge. Tacoma Narrows Bridge Opening Day, Saturday, October 14, 1950. Almost a decade after Gertie's collapse, teenage Dale marched steadily across the newly rebuilt Tacoma Narrows Bridge with Boy Scout Troop 48. He and his good friend Robert each carried a flag that flapped in the relentless winds of the Narrows. Dale was proud to be part of the opening day ceremony for this new bridge, which was quickly nicknamed Sturdy Gertie because of her strong design. Sturdy Gertie was not the galloping type. Tacoma Narrows Bridge and beyond. 2007 to present. Sturdy Gertie became so busy that in 2007, a second bridge was built right next to her to make room for all the cars. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge now consists of two twin suspension bridges, one carrying eastbound traffic and the other westbound. Below the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, Galloping Gertie's broken remains still rest underwater, sheltering a variety of marine life. Her torn roadway and concrete rubble make a cozy home for fish, anemones, sea stars, and crabs who all need a resting place from the strong currents. Many giant Pacific octopuses also make Gertie's remains their home. To ensure safety, scale models of bridge designs are now tested in wind tunnels to check for stability in all sorts of weather. Gertie's collapse had helped engineers teaching them to build safer bridges. Never again will they build a bridge as flexible as Gertie. Many years have now passed since Dale was a boy. Often he visits a cafe perched just up the street from his childhood home. Gazing out over the bridge and enjoying a cup of steaming seafood stew, he will forever be reminded of Galloping Gertie and his fateful birthday.